Several years ago, I got the opportunity to go on an amazing mission trip. Actually, I've been able to go on several mission trips, but only one to the place you always think of missionaries going, Africa. Africa. Not just Africa, but the poorest nation in Africa. It's Niger. Nothing but desert. It is a country with only two cities. The capital city, Niamey, on one end of the country. Another, the only other city on the opposite end, and one dirt road that connects them. And I'll always remember what it was like getting off that airplane in Niamey, Niger. And the man I was with had been before, and he warned me. He said, they're going to try to take your luggage so that you'll be obligated to give them a tip. And I didn't know what to expect or exactly what that meant, but I found out in a hurry. We walked off that airplane, and it wasn't like in America where everything's guarded and nobody can even get near the planes. They swarmed around us. It was a mob. Young men, big, strong young men, 100 or more, swarming around us, fighting for our bags. And it does no good to say, I'm going to carry my own bag. Say, snatch it away. Snatch it away. And then, when you get to your car, they won't give it back unless you give them a big tip. And there we were in that mob, 3 of us. What did we do? I gave them a tip. But I realized that I was in a place that really, really needed Jesus. And I spent the first night in Niamey. And as night descended on the place, there was a spiritual darkness that you felt as well. It was worse than any inner city in America that I can imagine. It was dangerous. There were all sorts of dangers, spiritual and physical. There were witch doctors who cast spells on people, and these people were said to actually die once they were cursed by a witch doctor. You could feel all that, and I had one thought: these people really need Jesus. And then we got in a 4-door Nissan Pathfinder and headed out of the city on that one dirt road. It's about like driving at Wolf Pen Gap or something in places. And after we had driven a while, we turned off that road, the main road, the highway, and headed up a little trail where few cars had even been. We were just traveling cross country, and we arrived at this little village that, oh, wow. When we pulled up, it was like we'd gone back in time. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, what I was sensing, what was all around me. These people were living just like their ancestors had lived 500 years ago, drawing their water from a well. The women were doing that. The women were also out in the field working the millet. The men were doing what men are supposed to do. They were gathered in a circle, talking and bragging. They weren't. They weren't working. But here's what I noticed about the men and the women, the boys and the girls. There was a smile on every face, and not a greedy, what can you do for me smile. Not a desperate, almost devilish smile. No. Just a smile of happiness, pure delight. Nobody there seemed to have any stress. Nobody there seemed to be worried about anything. They were a happy bunch of people. Very happy to see us. And I had 2 thoughts. And here they were. These people need Jesus. And secondly, when we give them Jesus, we better make darn sure we don't give them all of our other junk. That would not be doing them a favor. I was already finding more peace, more love, more joy than I've seen in a lot of American churches. They needed Jesus. But most of us, maybe at some point in our life, all of us as Christians, have some junk in our lives that we don't need to be giving anybody. It would be a terrible disservice. You know, here's an example of what I'm talking about. In my lifetime, I can only think of 4 people who truly hated me. I mean, plenty disliked, plenty disapprove or whatever, gossip about me. But hate, that's rare. Hate is when you so despise another person that you really will do anything in your power to destroy them. Does it mean you will go over and shoot them with a gun? No, because you know that's not within your power to do that and get by with it. But you will do anything you have an opportunity to do that you can get by with that will hurt them, destroy them, hurt their family, mess up, sabotage, whatever they're doing in life. That's hate. I've only know of 4 people. And all 4 of those people were members in good standing at 4 different churches. And when I realize how much hate there can be among Christian people, how much greed there can be among people who will tell you, I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I believe he died on the cross and he rose again and he was God in human flesh. And I believe that. And I believe that. And I bet most of you believe that. But there's people that believe that. And it makes absolutely zero difference in the way they think, in the way they feel toward other people, in the amount of peace and love and joy that's within them. And what really comes out of them is hell. All that in mind, I want to read you a verse. 2 verses, actually. First is Luke 6:45. Jesus is speaking in both these verses I'm going to read here. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. And an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. And then Jesus said, what you say flows from what is in your heart. It comes out of your treasury. Whatever's in you is what you're going to give out. Now, I want to show you what was in a certain group of people Jesus knew. A certain group of people to whom Jesus spoke. They were religious leaders. And here's what he said to them. Matthew 23:15. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Let that sink in. You go to so much trouble and expense. You cross land and sea to make a convert. And basically, when we try to convert another person, the idea is we want to give them what we have. We have Jesus. We want them to have Jesus. And thank God, a whole lot of us have Jesus. But remember what we already said? We've got a whole lot of other junk too. And if we're not very, very careful, if we're not very, very cautious and aware of ourselves in the process of trying to give people the gospel, we'll give them a whole bunch of hang-ups that we treasure within us. Jesus said, you're a child of hell. What does that mean? Well, think of it this way. Hell is torment. It is misery. It is for people who reject God. And to be a child of that is to be a product of that. It is that somebody who was a child of hell, filled with misery, filled with bitterness, resentment, greed, that person gave me what they had. And they didn't do me a lot of favors when they did. Now, here's what you need to make sure and understand. These Pharisees, these teachers of the law, they were hypocrites. Jesus said they were hypocrites, but not in the sense of the word most of us are used to. Most of the time, when you and I hear the word hypocrite, we immediately think the stereotype, somebody who's preaching against adultery and then secretly having an affair. Or they preach honesty, and all the while they are stealing church funds. Now, obviously that's hypocritical. Obviously that's wrong. But that's not what Jesus was talking about. That's not who he was talking to. They were hypocrites in a totally different sense. These religious teachers were, for the most part, very sincere. They were trying very, very, very hard to be right with God. The problem was they made one fatal mistake. They believed that the way to be right with God was to make sure to keep a certain set of rules. And if they kept these rules correctly, they were right with God. All those poor other people who don't even know the rules, they cannot possibly know God, but I do. And I need to give them what I've got. But Jesus said, he essentially said, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm glad you know the rules. I'm glad you know the commandments, and I sure hope you keep them. They're not bad. I didn't come to do away with them. But commandments are primarily for people who do not yet know and experience the love of Christ. Because when a person really feels the love of Christ, that love is in them and it comes out of them. And love does not cheat people. Love does not lust after what other people have. Love doesn't hold grudges. Jesus was teaching them that you are focusing on external behaviors and you think because you're getting it right in visible ways, and yet you're ignoring what really matters, the condition of your heart. Now, you and I grew up in a very different type of religious background. I say very different, but it's different only on the surface. Only on the surface. You see, the average Jewish person at the time of Christ grew up being taught what I just said. The way for you to be in good standing with God is to keep all of these rules. That's it. That's what it's all about. That's where all the emphasis is. Well, we were not taught that specifically, but we were taught something very much like it. We were taught, a lot of us were. I was, so were some of you. We were taught that the way to be right with God is to believe this, and this. If you can say, I believe this list of statements, you're right with God. Now, let me be very careful. It's mighty important that I believe and understand that Christ is the Son of God, that he's God come in human flesh, that he died on the cross and he rose again. I believe that. Most of you believe that. And there's one other person who believes that. The devil himself. Because the devil's no dummy. And he's not ignorant. The truth is that every truth in Scripture, the devil himself believes. But it doesn't mean he's in a right relationship with God. It doesn't mean he's surrendered. No, he's in full-scale rebellion. All the while he believes this human creed, this list of things that a good person is supposed to believe. James 2:19, what did it say? The devils also believe and tremble. What I'm getting at is that whether it's keeping certain rules or believing certain statements, it's possible to do that stuff, to believe the right stuff, and yet not in any way be following Christ, growing in Christ, drawing others to Christ. Now, a person like that may draw people supposedly to Christ, but their own idea of what it means to love Christ and follow Christ is so messed up that they're doing the convert a disservice. It's important that we learn the difference between trust and belief. Now, I know you might think those are just synonyms. They both mean the same thing. Yes, in a way they do. Trust. If I say I trust, if I trust you, I believe in you, I'm saying the same thing. But I want to make a distinction. What the Bible teaches is for us to trust God with our lives, to trust him enough to follow his will, trust him enough to surrender when he goes to work on us, to cooperate, trust him enough to keep following him even during dark times when we don't see where this is going. That's trust. That's the kind of trust that Abraham had. And look at what the Scripture says about Abraham. Romans 4:3. Romans 4:3. For the Scriptures tell us, Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. I want to re-emphasize 3 of those words. Abraham believed God. It does not say Abraham believed in God. I mean, it's important to believe in God, but that's not what made the difference in Abraham. It didn't say he believed in God. It didn't say he believed certain things about God. It just said he believed God. He trusted God with his life. And therefore he surrendered control of his life to God. And when you trust God enough to surrender to him, here's what's going to happen. He is going to work in your life, throwing out the junk one piece at a time, even though He'll string it out over several years. He'll get rid of one piece of junk at a time. He will build Christian character into you one level at a time. And you know what the end result is? When you share your faith with somebody else, you're giving them something valuable. You're giving them something that'll actually do them good. You're giving them something that's healthy, that's real, that's alive and growing, that can make a positive difference in their life. That's what this is all about. But we got to understand the difference between just believing certain things and trusting God with all the things in our lives. Think of it this way. This is an old illustration. You'll see it in gospel tracts. It's the airplane illustration, but I'm gonna add to it some to apply it here. Let's suppose I have an airplane out at Mena Airport, and I invite you to go on a trip with me. Let me just fly you up to Fort Smith. We'll be there in 15 minutes. We'll have lunch, and we'll fly back down. And the first thing that you should ask is, well, now, are you licensed? Do you have your certifications? Have you gone through all the proper channels? And I hopefully will be able to tell you yes. Yesterday, I decided I wanted to know specifically what are the things that a pilot must have in order to be trusted with human lives. And I found out that there are different levels of license. There's a private pilot license. That means you've got about 50 hours and you've worked some with an instructor. And then there's the air transport license. And also you learn to fly with instruments so that even if you're in clouds or it's dark, you're not going to crash. Then you become an air transport pilot, an ATP, and when you get there, a major airline may consider hiring you, but only if you've got at least 2,000 hours, much of that under supervision. See, those are the qualifications. Those are important certifications. And I would not want to get on a plane with somebody who didn't have that and have it right. Well, doctrine is a lot like that. You don't want to be following anybody that doesn't have Christian doctrine. You don't want to be traveling with somebody who doesn't even know where they're going. That's why doctrinal truths matter. That's why they are important. Now, with that said, though, I've asked you to go with me on this flight, and you say, no, I don't think so. I'm not doing that. And I say, what? You don't believe in me? You don't believe I can handle it? And you say, listen, I believe that you got ATP certification. I believe that you've got instrument training. I believe that you could fly upside down in a cloud. I believe that you are so well trained that Delta would hire you like that. And I say, okay, good. I'm glad you believe that about me. Let's go. No way, no way. You get it. It's so simple. Yeah, it matters to believe the right things about God. But if that's where it stops, you've stopped right where the devil himself stops. There's got to be a surrender. There's got to be a surrender. Surrendering control. Again, when you surrender control of your life, what you're saying to God is, God, I believe good things about you. God, I also trust you. And I don't know where you're planning to take me, but wherever it is, I'm ready to go. And it may be somewhere scary, but it's okay because I trust you. And you may do some amazing work in me, and I don't know how you're going to go about that. It might be painful. P.S. It will be painful when God teaches you stuff and when he forms you into better ways. It'll be painful. And yet, God, let's go. God works wonders in your life. You're transformed by the renewing of your mind. And you're like that statue, that marble statue I mentioned 3 months ago, how Michelangelo would walk by and see a stone, a great big old slab of marble, and he'd say, bring that rock to my studio. Why? It's just a rock. He said, no, there's an angel imprisoned there, and I've got to set him free. And so how did he do it? He was asked how he made these beautiful masterpieces. He said, it's very simple. I chip away everything that's not angel. And that's what the master does when you've surrendered to him. He'll sometimes hurt you, but it's only to help you. He'll wound you in order to heal you. Sometimes the blows of his hammer cause you to ache. But what he's doing is he's chipping away everything in you that does not look like Jesus Christ. You cooperate with that. You trust him with that. You're going to have something worth giving. You're going to have something worth sharing. And you're going to go out and you're going to tell people about it. But you know what else will happen? People will recognize it. They'll sense it. They'll know you got something they don't. Not just because you happen to be a church member or because you claim to believe in Christ, because they see the difference. They sense it's real. It's changed your life and it can change theirs. Here's the bottom line. For a lot of us, the most evangelistic thing we could possibly do right now would be to work on ourselves. The most evangelistic thing, the thing most likely to result in you being able to win someone else to Christ, is to surrender to Christ right now all those areas of your life that are not Christ-like. And as they're chipped away, Christ is lifted up and people are drawn. I'm saying, give people Christ, but get rid of the junk. Don't defend it. Don't defend it. It's amazing how stupid our egos can be. We can hear a message like this that is designed to set us free. And inside, we're fighting it at every turn. That's the sin nature. Well, I'll just say this. It's one of my favorite sayings. If you defend your right to keep all that junk, guess what? You get to keep it. Nobody's going to take it from you because they don't want it. You defend your right to stay just like you are and keep it all up on a surface level. Nobody's going to stop you. You can go right ahead. You can go right ahead fooling yourself into thinking you're drawing people to Christ, when the reality is the more you influence them, the more the child of hell they become. Don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Surrender to Christ today.